For too many years, families of children with devastating illnesses have felt helpless as they watch their child suffer. Today, they're taking matters into their own hands and finally finding relief treating their child with cannabis. These are their stories.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Well, hello. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yes. Hope everyone's been tuning in and also been checking out our interview with Bruce Linton, one of the great titans now of our time when it relates to cannabis and hemp.
Very good interview.
Yes, it was. And we're looking for doing some great ones, especially next month for the Purple Month.
Epilepsy Awareness Month is November.
Yeah, 2 weeks away. So we're looking forward to doing that. We plan on reaching out to a lot of good people in the area of epilepsy, just focusing on epilepsy and seeing what changes have come in the sense of treating it or even looking for cures. So we're going to be speaking to some number of doctors, neurologists, as well as patients and families who are out there as warriors for children that they're taking care of who are affected by epilepsy.
Yeah.
But tonight, our special guest is a young lady out in upstate New York. What, you're in Buffalo, correct? Nikki?
Go Bills.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, UB.
Yes. I was telling you, Nina graduated from UB. So Nikki Lawley, she's a cannabis Lawley, correct? If I pronounce it correctly?
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you. She's a cannabis advocate. By way of an interesting incident in her lifetime when she was totally against it, we can say that, totally not even on board, not even consideration. It wasn't even a thought. And then,
I would say that's fair, except to be fair, I knew about the plant as a recreational substance.
But that
I
was
mean,
it.
I partook.
oh, you
It
partook.
wasn't that I was completely naive.
Okay,
yeah,
fair
Fair
enough.
enough. Got it.
Gotcha.
But I don't, one of my friends sees or hears this interview. I don't want to be caught. She's lying.
Giving you side
I
looks.
inhaled.
Yeah, right? Giving you side eyes as she passes you a joint.
Right?
Oh, this is so funny.
Yeah, so tell us. So, I mean, share with us, because I know you, when we talked, you stated you were a registered nurse. So it was kind of interesting that, you're there in it, but you're not really, just because you were living in between both worlds, having used it, but never used it for medicinal purposes. So can you tell us how to get to this point where you were using it?
Sure. So my journey has been not that terribly unlike what I'm learning. Many, many others that have tried the traditional paths of medicine and found alternative medicine was the only thing that really helped them. I was a pediatric nurse for many years, and just like that, my life changed in a millisecond.
Wow.
I was restraining a child for a routine immunization. He was being quite combative, and my coworker needed assistance. And so I went in, as every time the coworker went to give the injection, the child flapped his arm like a bird, and therefore it was kind of risky, and no one could hold his arm. So I got behind the child and the father. And I mean, these were, average humans. They weren't huge, but they weren't teeny tiny ones either. The kid was about my size. He was 10 years old and about 100 pounds, 5 feet kind of thing. And he pretty much at full speed, warp speed, with all of his might, tucked his chin and threw it backwards into my forehead. And then I bounced off a plaster wall and back into his head. Life stopped at that moment.
So he hit you with his back of his head?
His total head at
Like a
full
headbutt.
force.
Like a headbutt.
Ooh.
And it hit, did it catch you on the nose of your bridge or your nose or the forehead?
It actually was a little bit higher. It was, I'm quite honestly, it's shocking my glasses didn't break because I wear them. But yes, it was the bridge of my nose, the frontal right lobe, basically, of my brain. And then at the back, at the occipital junction where your, C1 kind of join your head to your spine. That was completely malaligned, and it's this kind of mess.
Had a spinal cord injury.
Yeah, yeah. It's they call it cervical instability is actually what it's called. So my head doesn't sit correct anymore. And so as a result, it creates all kinds of nightmarish symptoms that everyone says, oh, you just have a concussion. Oh, it's just a bump on the head. No, this is not just a bump on the head. After receiving this injury, I obviously went to a urgent care center. The physicians that were on staff said, "Oh yeah, you got a concussion. Your eye's not right. There's definite stuff." And I couldn't feel my left arm. So immediately I had neck symptoms, but I really didn't connect the two. I mean, I actually was more worried about my arm than I was my head. The adrenaline was just pumping. I was quite aggravated with the child. And, I never expected this would be a life altering injury ever. I'm the girl that used to own her own business, worked, 80, 90 hours a week, never slept. And I've been incredibly productive my entire adult life. So to even consider retiring or being disabled before 65 was like never even a consideration. So I just turned 50 and, I can honestly say I never expected to be in this position. But the most challenging aspect of the whole journey was getting a diagnosis, getting doctors to listen to me. I'm a medical nurse and I have an education. Just because I have an injured brain doesn't mean I'm not smart. So when I was being talked to like I was stupid, it was very, very insulting. And because this was a work injury, I was faced with the New York State workers' comp system. And what a little nightmare that is. They pay for nothing. Providers do not accept this form of payment. So you're given usually, for the most part, the less qualified or the more mainstream providers. Alternative medicine is never considered. And I was falling outside of all the treatment parameters. So it was a constant battle of, yeah, we're not going to pay for this. Well, how am I supposed to function? I was pretty non-functional for the first 4 months of this injury. And again, everyone telling me that I should be way better by now and there's no problems. And now all of a sudden, that's all there is problems. So having said that, I accidentally found cannabis. And after being on 18 different pharmaceuticals, seeing 50 different providers, I stumbled upon cannabis when I was in Las Vegas. A billboard came cruising by when I was quite suicidal, standing on the ledge, literally, of my hotel room, and deciding that I wouldn't actually kill myself. I would just mess myself up more. And a cannabis billboard comes cruising by that says, come get your legal Nevada cannabis card. And I'm like, cannabis card? What the hell is cannabis? And I mean, I knew it as pot, weed, herb, ganja. I didn't, cannabis. It just sounded like some fancy word for something special. And then but it was a picture of a pot leaf. So then it came back by, same advertisement. And then I read it closer and it said, want pot? Get your card now, or something like that. And so then that resounded with me. Oh my God, really? So my husband came back after being out for a walk and not being able to handle my devastatingly depressed and anxious mood. He came back and I told him, yeah, some pot, that we can go get my pot card in Nevada. And he's like, let's go do it. And I'm like, what? So this was my very conservative 75-year-old husband who was definitely not part of the pro-pot era. And so we ended up getting my cannabis card. And I walked into a dispensary for the first time, and it was the most overwhelming experience ever. But my life forever changed that day because I discovered cannabis completely by accident. It was sort of like the universe just dropping this huge sign in front of me that said, you need to look at other things, sister. There's better things in life for you than just offing yourself. So,
I mean, thinking about this, prior to you even getting that far, did any of your, I mean, just dealing with the doctors is one thing, because I find it hard to believe that despite the fact that you have a background in medicine, because you're a registered nurse, that the doctor still downplayed whatever you thought you had or whatever you were going through. Did any of them say that, hey, maybe you might be psychosomatic, maybe you're just thinking you're
absolutely. Wow. You have just a concussion, and this is all in your head. And Nicole, I think your headaches headaches are being caused by your anxiety and depression, not the concussion. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I've never had anxiety and depression.
Wow.
What are you talking about? Yeah, it was a huge issue, especially workers' comp doctors, because their job is to take you out of the system. She's all better. Oh, this isn't, adding up to 2 + 2 = 4. Her symptoms just are lasting too long. And I wish I was malingering. I wish I was faking. I wish nothing more. I mean, I have taken my health for granted for 46 years, or how long? Yeah, 4 years. Yes, 46 years. I can't do math very well anymore. Despite having been a casino dealer and, nurse.
So
basic math struggle.
Can you tell us some of your symptoms that you were feeling?
Yes. Cannabis completely took me off the ledge that day. It basically gave me hope when I had none. The bud tender actually recommended a heavy indica strain that I say indica because that's what everyone kind of knows it as, but every cultivar has its own unique properties. But this particular strain that I consumed, which I smoked in a joint, I had edibles, I had vape pens, I tried like 16 different products in Vegas. And it got me off the ledge. I mean, there wasn't one product that I can say I tried and it was just like, oh, I have no pain and life is so grand and everything's perfect. But I can tell you it made those feelings of absolute darkness and despair actually allow me to see other things, if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. So in terms of your job, were you able to work? Were you?
No, I'm permanently disabled now. I actually received Social Security disability due to traumatic brain injury.
It wasn't TBI.
So that was your diagnosis?
That diagnosis was made early on, the TBI. It was sort of miraculous. I actually got approved for Social Security disability on the first time out. I had so many proof for evidence of things not being right, but no one was really willing to go out on a ledge and say, oh yeah, this incident on 10/11/16 completely changed Nikki Lawley's life. Eventually I finally got that, but it took 3.5 years of fighting them to finally get that. I was very fortunate that Social Security disability does not rely on workers' compensation to make their determinations.
Okay.
So they're two completely separate systems, and trying to understand them is unlike anything you've ever tried to do when you have a brain injury. It is a mirage of hell.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, they had to find the injury through what? A CAT scan, certain types of tests you had to take or something? Or like, how were they able to find and determine that?
I had 32 different scans of my brain in the last 4 years. So what finally diagnosed it was a very special chiropractor out of Rock Hill, New York, that had a very special machine and technique that he spent 6.5 hours in an MRI machine with me. I received an incredible report detailing all the deficits after they compared all these different x-rays and everything. And that's where I finally got the cervical instability diagnosis. So that's when I truly understood why I wasn't getting better. There's true damage, and my frontal lobes basically don't get a lot of CSF fluid to them. So basically the car wash isn't washing real good, because that's how you basically every night when you go to sleep, you're constantly washing the fluid through the brain, and well, mine kind of doesn't flow that well. So once I learned that, then a lot of things made sense as to why my headache never would go away, why no matter what I took or did, it wouldn't alleviate. So I finally had hope in a diagnosis. And then I had a doctor who said, well, if cannabis helps, that's great. Use it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not like a criminal anymore. Isn't that beautiful? I'm not one that, I'm pretty obedient. I'm a law-abiding, preppy kind of chick. And so just like the girl next door kind of thing. And, so doing anything illegal was not my jam. So as soon as New York allowed chronic pain, I then got my medical marijuana card.
Wonderful, yes.
And I discovered in New York State, though, what a bunch of crappy products we really have
yes, we know.
Do not work.
We know.
And are ridiculously overpriced.
So share the experience with us, that journey when you first got your card and your head. Well, the question is this. What doctor approved you to go get your card? Because I know that for the process is that you see your regular doctor, get some supporting documentation, take that documentation to a cannabis doctor, and then from there they would put you in the system and provide you with a card. Now, who did you speak to, or how did that go for you?
Well, here was the beautiful thing. I randomly found on Facebook, and this is how everything happens. And look, I don't know if it's AI or Big Brother watching or what, but I swear to you, things show up in my email or on my page, or things that just shouldn't show up at the right time. And they just always seem to. And in this particular case, it was get your New York State medical card via telehealth. And so this pops up on my Facebook. And so I do a click here, and it was a quite simple process. $250 later, on my birthday in 2017, I received my New York State medical marijuana card.
Nice.
And it was super easy. There was no complication until workers' comp actually did end up paying for my cannabis after discovering all these drugs that they had been giving me were causing incredible allergic reactions. So this was kind of counterproductive. So they actually, a judge ruled to cover my cannabis. It was, of course, appealed by the insurance company, and it went back and forth. But at the end of the day, they were reimbursing my medical cannabis.
Congrats.
I had to see a medical cannabis doctor to get it covered under workers' comp, because my particular telehealth nurse was not. But workers' comp paid for it, so I didn't really care. That prescription will expire here coming up soon, and I'll probably just go the telehealth route again, because that was a very simple, straightforward process.
Congrats. I know it's not easy. Now, how far, and now do you get your medicine from a dispensary, correct?
Correct. When I was on comp, now I have since settled my workers' comp case in May. So I no longer am getting reimbursed for my cannabis that I would purchase from a legal dispensary.
So now you're coming out of pocket.
It kind of never helps anyway, the legal stuff here in New York State, but it was better than nothing, especially if it was getting covered by workers' comp. Then at least I felt like I wasn't spending $100 and it completely didn't work. At least I had some kind of pacifier, if you will. Prior to COVID, my life was spent the majority of time in Canada. That's where I discovered all the benefits of cannabis. And they went legalized in 2018. And I know so many people in Canada, and I was able to learn so much about the plant and learn what really works for me. So Canada is 15 minutes from me. And
Oh, wow.
up
Oh, yeah.
until
Toronto especially,
March, it was very easy for me to go. Now, unfortunately, I have not been able to go get my medicine and enjoy it and have a great quality of life because I'm within the lovely state of New York.
Oh, my God. So how far is the nearest dispensary in New York from you?
Oh, I've got 4 right in my backyard. Buffalo has the Botanist, Columbia Care. I have a choice, an assortment. Unfortunately, their products are 5 milligrams and are
Wow, that's very
little
low.
to no value. I actually need THC. No, THC is absolutely not all I need. I'm very specific with my terpenes and minor cannabinoids and things like that. But I'm just learning about this. I mean, I couldn't even explain to you educatedly why I think XYZ works. And all I know is a strain. I don't have tested cannabis to actually give you
Like a specific
results
strain.
because of New York State.
Oh, my God. So my another question is this. I'm assuming that your life is a lot much better than it was before. In other words, you're able to do certain things you weren't capable of doing before.
Absolutely.
Like what's changed? Like from us?
Like I get out of bed.
Oh, wow.
That's
huge.
a big
Yeah,
one.
that's true. Take the things for granted sometimes.
It's been one of those things that's, I mean, I literally would spend days in bed. I would never get up. And I couldn't stand the head pain. I couldn't, any overstimulation whatsoever. It was like a meltdown. Super sensitive, super unbalanced. And cannabis has really balanced me out.
Not one particular strain. It's just that you tried variety, and it's just that you've been benefiting from each one.
Not one particular strain, because I don't have the luxury of getting one particular strain here.
Wow.
If I was in Canada, I can give you several strains that worked, but again, it's all based on the certificate of analysis and understanding what's in it that's making it work. You know, the entourage effect of all the cannabinoids, the minors, the majors, and all the terps and all the other good stuff that's in the plant. Each one comes out as a different mixture, and you can have like 3 of the same seeds, same growing medium, same stuff in different locations, and you will have such different test results.
Yes.
So a name means really nothing. And unfortunately, in the markets where flower isn't legal or accessible for patients, you're relying on a strain name that somebody came up with that maybe it's that and maybe it's not. You really don't know because it's not tested.
So for you, how often do you need to medicate?
I medicate all day.
Really? Just to function?
Every 3 hours, I would say. But I microdose. I never feel, quote, high. I think my THC level just pretty much stays at a constant. And different strains have different effects. There's some that make me sleepy. I'm learning, fresh cannabis versus aged cannabis versus, the effects of the smells and how it really makes your body respond. And it's really cool as you start to learn about the terps and how they all integrate together. And I'm, like I said, very early in my learning and not trying to sound like Miss Cannabis here, but
Got it.
I'm just amazed by the plant. I'm amazed that I wasn't ever taught about it in nursing school and that doctors aren't taught about it in doctor school. And it's like, what in the hell? I'm amazed that Border Patrol agents aren't taught cannabis. I'm amazed that police officers and teachers that they think it's this bad, evil thing.
Yes. It's sad.
Currently, it's so sad. This plant can help so many people.
Yeah.
And that's what we're forgetting.
Yeah.
Even the people who are trying to stop it.
Yeah, it can hurt. And the thing is, like, so there are people that found out that you were very, where they used, like you, they were using it all day, and they used to be called, quote unquote, potheads, right?
Mm-hmm.
come to find out, they were self-medicating themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
my son is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And I yell and complain, but he's not taking drugs anymore.
Exactly.
You know, the Depakotes and the
my
lithiums and crap like that.
Oh yeah.
He just self-medicates with cannabis.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe it, but in theory, I think he realizes it. But
yeah. He doesn't want to admit to it.
But
He still
that's
feels
fine.
guilty.
I think that's
he's
fine.
31. I mean, he's not like a kid.
Yeah.
But I was so poo-poo on him like all of his life for smoking pot, right? I was always like, what are you doing? You're frying your brain cells.
Oh my
Come to
God.
find out, it's like regenerating mind.
Yeah, right? So the question, so going to that in the sense of your family, like how are they been looking at you? I mean, once they find out how serious your injury were, and then to see that you're looking to use cannabis and you eventually do, what was their initial thought? Like, Mom, do whatever you got to do, or Mom, like, maybe we should look for another opinion?
Oh, no. They were all for it.
Oh,
They were willing
Cool,
for
Mom.
anything to get me off the
Yeah, right?
broom I was on. I mean, I was like next level turbo bitch. Like next level. I was on steroids, nasty at times. And that was never my personality. I just couldn't take the pain. I mean, chronic pain, chronic anything sucks. And
Absolutely.
I never understood it as a nurse. And until you live with it, like you guys get it because you have a son that's chronically ill.
Yeah.
You understand it in a different way than I do because you're a caretaker for someone. But I understand it living it. And like I said, I mean, you guys maybe have your own personal stories with how the plants helped you guys, but I'm just saying whether it's sleep, pain, depression, anxiety, PTSD. There are so many things, and it's just being patient and understanding every strain isn't going to work. Every product isn't going to work the same. So being flexible and willing to try different things.
And patience. That's the biggest one.
Patience and money.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We know.
You have
They're both up there.
some can of fairy that just drops off stuff in your doorstep. I unfortunately do not, but if there are those people out there, kudos, because the world needs more can of fairies. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we were just discussing. We wish it was cheaper.
Yeah.
We wish it was. It's just not fair.
There's so many people out there suffering unnecessary. So even I'm just thinking about your situation where you had. So how many medications were you on that you eventually got off, and did any of those medications add to your, how you could say, your depression, your anxiety, your psychosis? Because I know that some medications do have that side effect. So I was wondering, did you pick that up? It wasn't just you going through it, but the medications were triggering.
It was the medicine. The antidepressant cocktails that they would give me, which included mood stabilization, the Depakotes, the...
you were having seizures? Oh, no.
No. They just
actually
popped
help
me on that
psychosis.
for mood stabilization.
Yeah, that's true.
Just popped you on it. Cymbalta is what, legit almost killed me. That drug did something to my brain chemistry that no substance has ever done. Meaning the constant thinking of death and constant thinking, how am I going to do it? And what's going to happen? And is anyone going to show up at my funeral? Like, who gives a shit? You're dead. I mean, right now I'm like, I can't even believe my mind went down that hole, but it wasn't Nikki. It was the drugs and the side effects. Oh my gosh, the hives, the anaphylaxis reactions. I had Botox injections for chronic pain in the neck and the head.
Wow.
And what a nightmare that was. I had an anaphylactic reaction the second time they did it, and I'm still not right 3 years later. Really. My shoulders and my muscles in my neck have never been the same. Never. And I mean, it seems ridiculous that you could possibly have long-term side effects like that, but there really is no other explanation.
That is absolutely scary.
And I've kept track of all my records. And I mean, what a nightmare that is, because my executive function, the act of completing tasks, is one of the biggest things that's gone in my life. And trying to keep track of all the appointments and the paperwork and remember where you put things. And it's all the things you've always taken for granted about yourself that you've always handled. Imagine not being able to do any of them.
So that's why you're unable to go back to be a nurse.
Yeah, you were forgetting
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Were you having like fog? You have like these blind spots. It was just like a moment of like lost memory, like
Blankness. Yes.
Yeah.
Short-term memory, totally shot. I literally could talk to you about something 5 minutes later, gone. Couldn't even guess that we even talked. It would be like I wasn't even there.
Wow.
In my neuropsych tests, I showed like extreme intelligence in certain areas, and then I would just bottom out in others. And so their interpretation is, well, she's not putting forth the effort. No, bullshit. I'm no longer medicated on cannabis. For the first, say hour and a half, I'm pretty on my game. But after that, the levels of cannabis go down in my system. And so then what happens is everything kind of goes out from under me, from attention to the cognitive ability to just process basic things.
Wow.
When my son, we actually noticed that it doesn't happen so much now because he's been on cannabis for years. But we would say, okay, if he's getting an assessment, let's give him his CBD right before the assessment, so he could be so he had some clarity. Because we noticed.
Well, I actually went to a neuropsych doctor that I paid out of pocket. One of my other
it's very
wonderful
expensive
expenditures. Oh my gosh, it was $4,500.
Oh yeah, we know. Yeah,
in Montreal. And I drove up there with my husband, and we actually went twice. And I wanted a genuine, unbiased, non-workers' compensation, non-insurance company, a guy that reads my stuff and actually gives me an honest assessment. And I asked him, I said, do you want me medicated or unmedicated? He said, start the morning medicated, and the afternoon after your lunch, don't medicate, because you'll have food and energy again.
Yeah.
But let's see how you do. And let me explain to you the results was so in the test. It was dramatic. And the doctor even commented, he's like, wow, what a difference. And then he saw me the next day, again, medicated. And he's like, what a difference it makes. And I've had numerous people finally understand what executive dysfunction really is and how altering it is, and then what a huge difference cannabis can make. I was at a Brain Injury Association meeting in Ottawa, and I was one of the speakers sharing my survivor story, and I had a woman come up to me in tears, and she said, my daughter sounds just like you, but she's only 17, and I'm afraid to give her cannabis. And I'm like, look, if she's getting ready to kill herself, cannabis is not going to hurt her at this point.
Yeah.
I would not be as worried about the war on drugs.
Oh yeah,
propaganda of everybody.
Oh,
you're going to destroy your youth.
Yeah. Fry your
brain. And I said, getting her off the ledge is key. And I said, sure, start with CBD. I'm not suggesting go get her a joint and spark up.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got to tell you, for people like myself, I need pain relief quick. I don't have time or energy to wait 2, 3, 4 hours for things to kick in.
Yeah.
So smoking is my fastest relief.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't metabolize anything fat soluble. So that includes THC and CBD. So as a result, anything that has to go through first pass metabolism has zero effect on me. And I also am a rapid metabolizer of THC.
Is this? Oh, you always been like this, or is this because?
No, it was through genetic testing that I learned about the rapid metabolization of the THC, and I also had weight loss surgery and no gallbladder, so that's why
it makes
I
sense
was told,
with the fat. With the fat makes sense.
Got it.
It doesn't work for me.
Wow.
And And when you tell this to a doctor, and then that doctor that's the cannabis, quote, expert of the area tells you, well, you're only smoking to get high and there's no medicinal benefit.
The cannabis doctor said
The
this?
cannabis specialist.
You know those guys.
The
Some
man.
of them.
Man.
The specialist said this?
The
That's
specialist
strange.
in the world in Western New York. Like the man you see that is cannabis buffalo. You just Google that and you'll get that doctor's name. But genuinely, the guy looks at me and says, oh, THC really has no benefit. And you need to go downstairs and buy my CBD capsules that I sell under my label because
one
ours
of
are
those
better than
things.
the New York State dispensaries.
Oh, one of those. Okay.
Can you believe this?
Nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
This is the cannabis doctor for New York State. This is an example. I'll take my telehealth girl any day.
Wow. And I'm so glad that you're a part of an organization.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Because I feel like more people with TBIs or even stroke, which is a form of TBI, should have some access to this, or at least have access to education on this.
Correct. I
And-
struggled and have struggled huge to find one place that validates cannabis and TBI. Like it's out there, but you have to dig through so many layers. And depending on how much you pay Google,
Yeah.
it depends on where you fall in the search. So, again, these are all things that I'm learning like for the first time. So trying to find valid and real information, and you can literally hear so much bullshit and you just wonder who's really right. And
Exactly.
I just really try and seek the data and the information from the legitimate sources.
Makes perfect
Published
sense.
authors, published science researchers, published doctors that actually understand the endocannabinoid system. Big deal.
Yeah.
And so for me, I obviously I'm not a medical doctor, but for me it makes sense if it works with epilepsy and they're showing signs that's working with autism, all neurological conditions, which is your TBI, stroke. It should work with, if it works for seizures, right? If it works for autism, it should also have some benefit for TBIs. It just makes sense.
Absolutely.
It just
Absolutely.
makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And
Any
it's
neurological
and
condition.
There are papers out there, and there is data. It's just finding it all in one place. It's very challenging. And as you know, just in dealing with your child, you're dealing with an amazing physician, Dr. Chin. She's like next level and knows what she's doing. And kudos to you guys for finding the best. But there's so many that aren't, and they just are selling snake oil or selling snake remedies. And it's just, I guess I can't say it loud enough, but be your own advocate and do your own homework and do your own research. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, just talking
There's
about
no
advocates.
cure-all.
Well, talking about advocates, you're one. You've become one. Like, what have you been doing so far as advocate? Because you mentioned you were speaking in Ottawa. Like, are you doing speaking engagements? Are you traveling? Are you, hosting? Are you doing what are you doing to get the word out about your story and also how to help?
Well, what I have tried to do, pre-COVID, it was a lot easier. Current COVID, it makes things a bit more challenging. So I do have a website, nickyandtheplant.org.
Okay, great.
But I am not a web developer, nor really good at this content stuff. Just trying to learn all this social media stuff. But I do have a Facebook page, Nikki and the Plant. And Instagram is Nikki Lawley. And then, of course, my main Facebook page, Nikki Lawley, and also LinkedIn, Nikki Lawley. And I usually just try and post articles of relevance to
nice.
TBI and cannabis, as well as TBI in general. Just, the more awareness we share about conditions, the more people don't feel so alone in their journey.
Exactly. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, or if they wanted to have you speak at an engagement or anything like that to share your story, how would they reach you?
Sure. My email is probably the very best, and that is Nikki Lawley. It spells Nikki, Lawley, LAWLEY, the number 1, @gmail.com. Or you can reach out through the website or Facebook or LinkedIn.
Amazing. Now, have you teamed up? Have you teamed up with your chiropractor? Because I mean, that chiropractor is pretty much that saved your life.
That man did. That man is the busiest man on the planet. To get into him took 7 months. He has worked on so many football players and diagnosed them, and so many people have gotten hope from this man. His name's Dr. Scott Rosa, and he is next level, guys.
Wow.
He really knows his stuff. He reminds me of like the Ethan Russo of cannabis, but for chiropractic. Kind of sort of looks like him, sort of the whole 9 yards. It's kind of interesting.
That's amazing.
He was very supportive of cannabis. He was very much like, absolutely, it can't hurt.
Well, that's awesome, because I mean, it was very fortunate for you to find him and be able to get that help, because when no one else could, help you, especially Western medicine. But I'm glad you're here and glad that you could share your story. We really appreciate having you on. And
thank you so much.
And we wish you all the best, and continue, advocating, because like what we're doing, we're advocating as much as possible for children who suffer from epilepsy, or even teenagers, and for yourself too, for people who suffer TBI. I mean, just something so crazy that happens that could just turn your life upside down forever.
And you know what? Everything happens for a reason.
It does.
And everything, you don't understand it at the time, but you can either spend your life,
being miserable,
complaining and being miserable about it, or
light a fire,
accept it and move forward.
Yeah. Well, fortunate you're here to share your story with us, and we thank you again. We wish you all the best. We'll stay in touch. Definitely want to, if you're ever down here in the city before they burn it down, love to sit down and chat with you again. Or if not, we'll come and run and hide upstate.
Anytime, baby. Actually, we got Buffalo right here, Buffalo Wings.
We might be in Buffalo maybe next year, actually, UB. So.
Oh, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, my niece got accepted to University of Buffalo campus.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. Well, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And I look forward to learning more about your journey, too. And let me know how I can hear this interview and everything else. And I will put it on my pages and stuff.
Oh, definitely. We'll get you everything you need. No worries.
Awesome, you guys. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to talking again.
Yes, definitely. Thank you again. Be well.
Be well. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Hi, listeners. This is Maggie Kelly, co-host of the Cannabis Capital podcast, Blunt Truths from the Cannabis Economy. Join me and my co-host, Ross O'Brien, leading venture capitalist and the author of Cannabis Capital, How to Get Your Business Funded in the Cannabis Economy, as we go beyond the headlines and remnants of the green rush. If you're a cannabis investor or entrepreneur, join us for thought-provoking, elevated conversations on the cannabis economy. Cannabis Capital, the podcast, premiering Thursday, September 16th.
Okay, so pretend that you're done. I'll say, "Can you hear me? Is this thing on?" And you say, "Ross, I told you we're not done with the promo yet."
I love that you want to script an interruption.
I think it's funny. Is it not funny? Do you guys disagree?
I think a lot of things are funny.